Hey guys, welcome to PC Perspective. Today we are going to take a quick preview of a new Windows 8 laptop, Ultrabook, whatever you want to call it, that we just got in from Lenovo. The Yoga Pad, it's actually the Ideapad Yoga 13, and you can see it. See right here, we just got it in this morning. We're going to do a full review, but we've thought we'd go ahead and do a little unboxing preview of it. As somebody in our chat room pointed out before we started, yes, I did do a preview unboxing just to make sure everything worked. This is the actual unit itself, and without the little plastic around it, it's a little bit harder to get out. We'll move that out of the way. And it looks nice. The Ideapads are, you know, a little bit more consumer oriented compared to like the ThinkPads, of course. And one of the things that I actually kind of like about it, it has this textured finish to it. Not textured, but I don't know. It's plastic, but it feels nice and smooth, and it's got just a little bit of kind of tack to it, so it won't slip out of your hand or anything like that. It's a pretty slim machine. It's pretty thin. It doesn't have any kind of teardrop shape to it. It doesn't have any kind of curves to it or anything like that. But it seems like a nice machine so far. We'll go over the specs and all that in a second. We've got our manuals and discs and that kind of thing. Probably one of my initial favorite things about this was that this is the power cord, comes packaged separately for some reason, but when you actually look at the power brick for this unit, look how small it is. It's incredibly light, this combination, right? That's a lot of people don't consider this when thinking about the weight of a laptop or an Ultrabook or a portable machine. This is even much lighter and smaller than what we have with the X1 Carbon. It is rated at, let's see, output 20 volts, 3.25 amps. So you're talking 60, 70 watts of total power output from this. So in terms of carrying around a heavy charger, no worries there. The rest of the box is, that's it. That's all you got. Not too much to have to deal with. Now, let's take a look at the outside of the machine. You can immediately tell by looking at the back, you've got a different than normal hinge. This is what allows the machine to wrap all the way around. On this side, you will see a full-size HDMI output port, USB 3, a headphone / microphone jack. It's both. This is your volume switch, which is kind of interesting. This is the front of the machine. Your volume rocker is actually in the front, and that's obviously because of the different placements and shapes that this machine will be able to take. Here you have your, I guess that's your mute button, or no, that's your rotate lock button right here, so if you don't want it to rotate and turn. SD card reader, another USB port, standard USB 2.0, and then you've got your power connection, which looks a lot like a USB port, the same thing we saw on the X1 Carbon as well. Nice, interesting finish to it like I talked about earlier. Let's go ahead and open it up. And you'll see here, if I can avoid a lot of these reflections, that it looks like a kind of a normal notebook, right? You've got, it's Windows 8 obviously, you've got a keyboard. It's actually a really nice keyboard. I've typed on it just for a little bit, and it has that same kind of the new version ThinkPad style keyboard. The trackpad is nice. This texture is actually a little bit even tackier than the first one. You know, you're not going to get fingerprints on it, which is really nice, but obviously not the same for the screen that you can see is very glossy, and it being a touchscreen and all that kind of stuff. Other than that, keyboard is pretty standard. Trackpad is nice. Roll it down here. It's a good size. It's clicky aspects to it. So here's Windows 8. It is a full touchscreen. I think it's a 10-point touchscreen. So, you know, we can zoom in and out and all that kind of stuff that you do with Windows 8. Obviously, the big draw to this is kind of how it changes shapes and where it gets the term yoga from, right? So if we kind of rotate this, notice we can take it completely flat. But then the idea is here, you take it, you flex it, you get it completely rotated around, and now you have what is essentially a tablet-only device. The keyboard on the back is still there, but typing on it doesn't do anything. It's smart enough, obviously, to disable the tablet or the keyboard rather when you're on this mode. So now you have just your standard Windows 8 laptop, or I'm sorry, tablet. Your start button, your Windows key is up here. Switch between that type of stuff, whatever whatever it is you happen to be doing. Works the same as any of the Windows 8 machines you have. Obviously, you can rotate it this direction if you want to as well. So that's its second kind of placement shape that it will do, as Lenovo is branding it as 4 different laptops in one. Also, you can set it down on the keyboard and trackpad, right? So the keyboard and trackpad are on the bottom. You set it down on the table, and now you have a stand. Now you have a tablet with a stand on it, and it actually works pretty well. You know, it's like having like the Surface with the kickstand on it, essentially, right? But you have your own stand for it, so now you can use this as you normally would, looking through your applications and that kind of thing. I do worry a little bit about having the keyboard and touchpad on the bottom, making sure that you're putting it on a clean surface, making sure that you don't have moisture or gunk or anything underneath the bottom of that while you do that. Or if you're worried about that, the fourth method you can use this machine is actually like this, in kind of a tent shape, as they call it. And the hinge is stiff enough to not have to worry about it kind of separating. And this is probably my favorite way to use it, because it's like having a kickstand. You have it all kind of ready for you and presented, and you can adjust the angle then to however you want to do that, and it seems pretty stable. And that's actually the thing I do like about it in my initial impressions the most, is that it is stable. When I push against it, you don't get any of the screen flex. One of the things I noticed when using it in its laptop form was that using the keyboard and the trackpad and that kind of stuff worked just fine, no issues there. But whenever you push on it, there's a little bit of bounce to it, and that would be kind of annoying. And you got the same thing when you were using it like this, right? So you still had that bounce to it that would be a little bit frustrating. So if you put it in the tent style positioning, you can use it, and there's no bounce to it, right? It seems much more stable and usable, user-friendly, at least in that view. It is a, let's go over some of the specifications for it. This is an Ultrabook, so you have a little bit of idea of kind of what the hardware and experience is going to be like. It is a Intel Core i5-3317U, which I had to look up kind of the specifications on that just to make sure what it was. And that is a 1.7 gigahertz part, scaling up to up to 2.6 gigahertz. So it has a 900 megahertz scale variance between its lowest frequency, its kind of base clock, and its highest turbo clock, and that is what enables this to be a U series processor, ultra low voltage part. So it can run at the lower frequency most of the time. It's a dual core hyper threaded part. So if we bring up our task manager here, let's see more details. You will see that I have to change graph to logical processors. You'll see that there are 4 logical processors on this. A little bit harder to see if we can get the camera to kind of focus on it. And that's, like I said, 2-core hyper-threaded. It does have HD 4000 series graphics in it, no discrete graphics. And we have a little bit of idea what to expect based on some of Matt's previous reviews on the HD 4000 in Ultrabooks. Not the same as the HD 4000 in consumer PCs, that's for sure. It's a 13.3-inch screen. It has a actually surprisingly nice 1600 by 900 resolution screen. So you can see what you get with that. 1600 by 900, 13.3-inch, pretty good pixel density. It's an HD plus IPS display. That comes with a, obviously your specifications will vary depending on which model or how you get it configured, but this is a 128 gig SSD, 4 gigs of memory. It's a little bit on the low side. I expected maybe a little bit more from this. The front camera up here is also only a 1 megapixel 720p camera, which is a little bit of a low spec, I think. it would make a pretty good Skype machine. That's one of the things Microsoft is pushing with Windows 8 is Skype integration. So it does have 802.11 BGNN. They say that I forget what the battery capacity is, but they're claiming more than 8 hours. Obviously, we'll have to do a lot of our own testing on that to make sure, but it seems like it should get pretty good battery life. You know, the dual core part will help with that, SSD only on it. It has a 10-point touchscreen, so if you want to use both of your hands, you can do it. I don't have an application on here really to take advantage of that. Maybe if we go in later and look at some of the paint stores or paint applications or something like that, we can get something to demonstrate actual 10 points. They're having something they have something called Instant Resume, and also I've noticed just in boot speed it's really, really fast. I also want to point out that it is 3.4 pounds. So it's actually incredibly light. I have my X1 Carbon sitting here next to me, right? And this is definitely heavier, I'm sorry, than the X1 Carbon, but it's not too bad, and it stays relatively thin. Doesn't have any cool teardrop shape to it or angled shapes to it. It's pretty simplistic. But let's look. So I just closed it. You can see that the power button here is flashing, indicating that it's in its standby mode. So if we just go ahead and open it up, we'll see how quickly we get to Windows on it. That's pretty good, right? And I also want to just show you how so we're going to shut it down completely. And we'll see how fast the boot time is just in a kind of seat of the pants measurement here. So here it is, completely powered off. Let's see, there it is. Okay, so our power button is gone here. So I'm just going to hit this power button right here on the front, and you can see me do that. And then we're going to go ahead and count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's pretty impressive, right? That's kind of been the promise of Windows 8 and SSDs and all that other kind of stuff. If you can get 5-second boot time from completely shut down to being on and usable, right? That's pretty awesome. Now, maybe if you have a lot of applications running and you put it into Hibernate, it's going to take a little bit longer to load that stuff back in from standby. But I'm pretty impressed with kind of that whole user experience. Windows 8 still maybe a little bit of an issue for some people. I think on a single screen notebook it's going to be a little bit easier to get used to. We're still waiting on a lot of the applications in the Microsoft Store to kind of percolate out. No Facebook, no Twitter apps. There are some third-party Twitter apps and Facebook apps, but none of the official ones, none of the really big names that maybe you would expect to see yet, other than, you do have Netflix and Skype and Hulu and iHeartRadio and some of that kind of stuff. You can take a look and always look on a daily update to see what's out. Shazam is out. That's something. Angry Bird Space, of course you got to have that. Fox News, Reddit. I personally am looking for things like Dropbox and Nest controllers and some of the things I'm just very used to having with my Android phones and even on my iOS devices that we still use around here. So we'll have to see how the app ecosystem starts to respond. My initial impressions with the Yoga 13 are actually pretty positive. We still have to run some performance tests. We have to run some benchmarks. We have to kind of see how this stacks up. But in this form factor, as a laptop, it works great. As a touchscreen in this form factor, there's a little bit too much bounce for my liking initially. Being able to close it completely, use it as a tablet. It's a little bit big for my use. It could be useful for direct sales and that kind of stuff, where you can actually, if you just want to hold it and use it as a tablet, you'd be able to do that. But I think maybe more interesting for going on plane trips or sitting at your desk or sitting at your table or sitting on your couch is this kind of tent form factor where you can watch a movie really, really easily like this. The camera's at the bottom, so you won't really necessarily be able to do your Skype calls as easily. For that, you'd probably have to resort to this stand version. But I do like that it enables you to do that without the keyboard in the way, if that's how you want to do it. It promises, it attempts to be the best of both worlds, a tablet when you want it, a notebook when you want it, and that's really the target of all of these convertible Ultrabooks that we're going to see coming out between now and the end of the year. So stay tuned at PCPer.com for a full review of the Lenovo Ideapad Yoga 13. I'm Ryan Shrout for PC Perspective.